Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. To see every day on the John Campea Show, we take some time to take live questions. However, we don't always have time to get around to all the live questions that get sent in, but I want to make sure those questions get answered in a video, so we gather them up and do them here on companion videos. Now, today is Tuesday, May the 7th, and this is a little bit of a different companion video because you see, we had a system freeze. I thought it was a YouTube freeze, but it wasn't. We had a system freeze doing the John Campea Show this morning, so we got none of the live questions. Because as soon as the movie news feed ended, we did a switch, and the switch triggered a freeze, and that's never happened before, and I haven't been able to replicate it again, so I think whatever the problem is kind of figured itself out. But I do apologize that we didn't get to any of the live questions this morning, but that's okay, because I got them here now, and we're going to address all the live questions that got sent in this morning now on this video. So, with all that out of the way, let's not waste any time, and let's start answering these damn questions that were supposed to be answered this morning. All right, we're going to get things started with Raven, who writes, "Hey gang, today's word is puerile. Adjective, childish, silly, or trivial." That's actually a word I believe I've heard used before. Now, the phonetic you got it there is puerile. Now, I've always heard of puerile, but maybe I didn't hear it right. Okay, Raven also writes, "Now that the spoiler ban is basically over, I just want to say, I never would have thought the words on your left would give me goosebumps. I loved it." Dude, it was, you know, honestly, it was the perfect phrase. If you had to sit around for a month to try and figure out what's the perfect first line for bringing everybody back, what's that perfect first line for bringing the cavalry in? What's the line? Maybe Avengers Assemble, but Cap needs to say that. Honestly, as you go over the history of the MCU, on your left was the best line for it. And Sam giving it was absolutely poetically perfect, and it was a marvelous moment. Totally marvelous moment. Good pick, Raven. All right, Raven also writes, possible Disney Plus is priced too low? No. If it was $15, then more people would have to decide between it or Netflix. But at $7, I feel like people will just add it to their monthly bills and keep Netflix. How is that too low, though? Like, if the consequence of the price is that, hey, you can afford to have both, why is that too low? And if you're in Disney Plus, if you price it high enough that somebody's got to pick between your service or another one, well, guess what? A lot of people are going to pick to stay with Netflix because they've got far more content. Far more content. I'm not saying everybody would pick to go with Netflix, not at all, but there'd be a lot of people that would choose to stay with Netflix. So no, I don't believe $7 is too low. Now, I do expect over the first year or two, they'll probably start bumping that price up, but they're understanding, hey, we're not going to have anywhere near as much content as our competitors, so we shouldn't charge as much. Once they start adding more and more and more content, they could probably justify raising the price a bit, but for now, I think $7 is a good starting point. Gisberto Guzzo writes, "I watched Network." Oh, I love Network. "I watched Network for the first time last night. Aside from the fact that it's a great movie, I was shocked at how poignant and relevant it remains. It really does." And you know, it's funny, it's one of those movies where even if people have never seen it, they've heard, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." Like, a lot of people have heard that. Faye Dunaway, Ned Beatty. I mean, it's just a classic, and you're right. It's one of these thematic movies that just doesn't age. I mean, look, the technology in the movie ages, the societal things change, but the heart of the movie and what drives it is just as relevant today as it has ever been. And I'm glad you saw it, Gisberto. And I really encourage a lot of you, if you've never seen the classic Network, add it to your to-watch list and make sure you watch Network. Good pick, man. All right, PJ Barnes writes, "Can Spidey cross over into the Disney Plus shows?" I guess that's up to Sony. I mean, Sony's the rights holder. They're the ones who have to make that decision, but, I don't know. I don't see why Sony would have a problem with it. I mean, Sony is profiting from having Spider-Man recognized as being in the MCU, so I don't think they'd have a problem. Look, the answer to that is yes, as long as Sony approves, and I don't see why they wouldn't. Maybe they would, but I don't see why they wouldn't approve it. Abel Contreras writes, "Need a Rob Burnett show. Great job on the spoiler vid." Rob does have his own YouTube channel, by the way, the Burnett Work. You should check it out. Make sure you go and check it out, man. James Welsh writes, "Would the Norwegian government really let a load of alien refugees," oh, this is Asgard, "rock up to their country, take a piece of land, and declare it New Asgard?" Well, maybe. I mean, wouldn't that just make your nation stronger? to have a bunch of Asgardians now calling it home? I think there would be a solid good chance that they would. And remember, from the geographic look at things, it's not like New Asgard was all that big. And it doesn't look like there was a lot of stuff there. So the Norwegian government might actually be really proud to do that. Hell, I think Canada would. A race of ancient alien super beings want to call part of Canada home? Come on in. We got tons of open space. I think they would. Anyway, Raven writes, I'm going to try to get you in trouble, John. I've noticed the description of the video. It always says, John and Rob discuss the following. So my question is, why no mention of my girl Ashley? Because Ashley's not a film pundit. Ashley's not a film commentator. She'll be the first one, and believe me, she has told me. She'll be the first one to tell you that. Ashley is an actress. She's a fan of films, but she's not a commentator and she's not a pundit. And that's a totally different set of things. She's a great host. She's a great presenter. She does a great job on our show doing the stuff that she does, but she's not a commentator. So that's why I mostly say it's Rob and I. So there you go. Anyway, Ben Rayner writes, spoiler ban lifted. Now I get to ask you guys this. You probably meant got. What got you more excited? Bring me Thanos or Cap with Thor's hammer? For me, it's Cap with Mjolnir. Yeah, I had a hard time anything would top. Like if we're talking about lines, then I think Bring Me Thanos beats anything, even on your left. I think it beats anything in Endgame. But as a moment, oh God, it's hard. It's very difficult not to say Cap with Mjolnir. That's very difficult not to say Cap with Mjolnir. So I'm going to go with that one, Ben. I'm going to go with that. All right. Raven writes, at James Welsh, maybe most of the decision makers in the Norwegian government had been dusted. Yeah, it's like, oh, the government here is in chaos. Let's just quietly slip in and set up shop. That very well could be what happened, Raven. Andrew Garfield writes, Houston, big win over Golden State series. Now 2-2. Yeah, and that was a nail biter because Houston was putting the pedal to the gas. I mean, they were putting their foot to the floor on that. They were... Woo! That game was in doubt to the last few seconds. I'll tell you what. I still think Golden State's going to win that series, but I'm not going to lie. I'd love to see Houston win that series. Jay Meister 25 writes, Endgame doesn't have fan service. It has character payoff. No. It has very blatant fan service. And sometimes fan service is a really good thing. Character payoff is something that comes organically by way of the natural flow of the narrative. That's character payoff. There's a lot of stuff in Avengers Endgame that is not a natural outcome of the normal narrative flow. There's a number of things that are just forced in there that buck any narrative rationale just to have it. An example of that would be like the all-girl shot, right? I think it's a wonderful shot and got a lot of people in every theater I've been in very excited. But you cannot say to me, it's like, wait a minute, she was just way over here and she was just way over here. Why would she suddenly be standing there? And how did it made no sense. But you know what? It was fan service and it was great. And we need to stop. Look, fan service is not always a good thing. Sometimes, fan service is done and it's just cheap and it just comes across as schlocky. But sometimes if you use fan service in the right way at the right time, it can be very effective. But make no mistake about it. I don't care how much you like Endgame. Let's not stick our heads in the sand and pretend like there wasn't a number of shots in that movie that were not a result of the natural flowing of the narrative, but rather were just fan service. But that's part of what got the big response. That's part of it. So I have no embarrassment of saying, yep, that's fan service and that's fan service and that's fan service. And I loved it. I'm not going to pretend it wasn't fan service. It was. Because of what the result was. A great experience in the movie theater, and I had a great time with it. So absolutely, Endgame, absolutely beyond any discussion, had fan service. There's no debating that. It absolutely did. And that's not a bad thing. City of Swift writes, good morning, folks. Choosing from movies released up to today, which movie role would you folks have liked to have played? None. I'm not an actor. I'd be terrible. I would be a horrible actor. I do not have the acting gift. I wasn't born with it. I've never trained for it. So, yeah, the answer, I can't answer for Rob or Ashley, who is an actress. I can't answer for them. But for me, the answer is none, because I wouldn't want to ruin that movie. Jordan Solis writes, Raptors 76ers series tied 2-2. Who you got tonight? I got Raptors winning the series, so they better win tonight. They are the better team. This year, they are the better team. They have no excuse. They need to win this series. And then set up a really great series with the Bucks. That's going to be a hell of a series. But then again, the Toronto Maple Leafs were the better team in the series against the Bruins, and the Bruins spanked them. The Bruins took them to Game 7. It never even should have gone to Game 7, and Toronto choked it away. And they might do it again, but I'm gonna take the Raptors. Let's see. Springus McDingus, nice name, writes, MCU is starting to lose me with time travel, multiverse stuff. It makes everything convenient, as if fake deaths weren't nearly enough. Hey, look, seriously, and this is part of the gamble that they're taking. They started losing a lot of comic book readers back in the day with all the multiverse and all the stuff. They came up with a significant series to bring it all back home and to bring it all and simplify it again. I have a few fears and worries about the MCU moving forward. Now they have operating time machine. Okay, what problem could possibly come along now that they can't fix with that? Now we have multiple dimensions. Okay, so you don't have to come up with anything really creative to tell a story. Just say, it came from another dimension. Yeah. It's lazy, it's schlocky, it's bad. Now that doesn't mean, and I said this on the John Campea Show earlier today, there have been many filmmakers that have taken a bad concept and made something golden out of it. And if anybody can do that, it's Kevin Feige. But it does make me a little nervous. I don't like time travel. I don't like multiverse stuff. To me, it's absolutely bottom of the barrel, lazy writing. Oh, people want Gamora back, but we don't have any way to bring Gamora back. Multiple timelines and dimensions. There, Gamora's back, but you killed Gamora. Yeah, but now we don't have to say that she actually came back to life, but here she is. Gamora's back. Yeah, but she's from another dimension. I hate it. I do. But just because I hate something doesn't mean it can't be used in a brilliant way. Let's see if they use it in a brilliant way moving forward. And if they use it in a brilliant way, then great. But I think they're walking a very, very... They're walking a very delicate line right now. And they're treading on thin ice. It would have been one thing, I think, if Endgame was actually the end of the MCU, but it wasn't the end of the MCU. Now we have a world where the Avengers have a fully functional, unlimited time machine. Anytime they want, they can just travel through time. Oh, crap, if only we had, I don't know, Noah's toothpick. No problem, time machine, go back, get Noah's toothpick. I mean... Now it's like, oh no, so-and-so died. No problem. We can just go plop out with another one from one of the other dimensions. There, they're back. See? Looks and acts just like them. I don't like it, but we'll see where they go. Terrell Wise writes, will MCU Spider-Man get a trilogy? Oh, I don't doubt it at all. Yeah, we'll definitely see a third one. Unless by some miraculous, weird thing happens and Spider-Man Far From Home flops, but it's going to join the $1 billion club, so I doubt that's going to happen. Dim Sum writes, hey, oh, no, not going to do that. I can see what you almost tried to make me do there, but you're not going to get me to do it. Nope. Not going to get me to do it. Not even a little bit. Okay, we move on now. Robert Johnson writes, I would expect a live-action Spider-Verse to be like the cartoon. We'd only see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire in backstories for Miles and Mary Parker and May Parker, Spider-Girl, a nice little nod to the fans. No, that wouldn't be a nod to the fans. That would just be silly, in my opinion. In my opinion. There may be people who agree with you, Robert, but to me, that's something you do. Again, to me, that's a Saturday Night Live sketch. That's an Elseworld 10-minute YouTube video. That's not a motion picture. I think it would be schlocky. I think it would be... I think it would reek of desperation. It would reek of fan service for sure, not in the good way either. So I'm going to disagree with you on that, but I'm sure you got many people who agree with you too. But that's the beautiful thing about these movie theories, man. We can all have different opinions about them. Gisberto Guzzo writes, everybody wants some is my favorite Linklater movie for a slice of life period comedy. I don't think it gets much better lately anyhow. I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it was tough because it was coming off of, I believe, Linklater's only Oscar nomination for Best Director. I think he's got like 3 or 4 Oscar nominations for writing, but I believe his only Oscar nomination for directing was Boyhood. And I believe, if I'm remembering it right, that Everybody Wants Some was his immediate film that came out after Boyhood. And I remember enjoying it. I don't think I loved it, though, and I don't think anybody I saw it with loved it. But I thought it was quite good. But I'll tell you what, my favorite Linklater film is me and Orson Welles. Now, I often bring up me and Orson Welles when I'm talking about Zac Efron, but honestly, I love that film. It's a diamond in the rough to me. Nobody talks about that film. Even when we're talking specifically about Richard Linklater, we don't talk about me and Orson Welles. I think that film is brilliant, and I love it. And yeah, but it doesn't get a lot of love. Robert Johnson writes, if Far From Home ends with Peter getting pulled into Venom's universe, I fully expect Spider-Man 3 to be called There's No Place Like Home. That could totally be it. We've been making jokes about Spider-Man Home Alone, Spider-Man There's No Place Like Home. I mean, I think that would be the perfect fit for it. I do not expect Far From Home to end that way, but that would be a great end. That would be a great title for something like that. Canada Rocks writes, I'm a progressive, so take this with a grain of salt, but the new Netflix documentary, Knock Down the House, is fantastic. Surprisingly emotional story about 4 women running for Congress. I have not seen it. I'll be honest with you, Canada Rocks, I haven't even heard of it, but that sounds fascinating. I might have to put it on my to-watch list. Thank you for the recommendation, dude. All right, Joseph Mitchell writes, did you notice towards the beginning of the Far From Home trailer, Spider-Man swings past the old Avengers Tower and it's under construction, possible tease at Oscorp or Baxter Building? Not Baxter Building, because we know the Fantastic Four aren't getting introduced for a couple of years. Oscorp is a possibility. I mean, that's something we've speculated for a long time. A lot of us have been speculating Oscorp is a very definite possibility for something like that. So I wouldn't be surprised at all, Joseph, if that's ended up with a bit. But then again, it can be anything. Just because something there doesn't mean it has to become something we know. They can be absolutely anything. But I don't think Oscorp is far off the mark. Okay, here. Gisberto Guzzo writes, I have high hopes for Knives Out. Me too, man. I love crime/mystery movies, but haven't been floored by anything since Inherent Vice. I have been. But let's go over. Listen to the cast. Besides the fact that you got Rian Johnson directing it. Here we go. You've got Chris Evans. We know that. Catherine Langford, who was supposed to be in Avengers Endgame, as a matter of fact, Daniel Craig, Lakeith Stanfield, who I love, Jamie Lee Curtis, who everybody loves, Toni Collette, who should have got a Best Actress nomination last year, Don Johnson, Christopher Plummer, Jaden Martell, Frank Oz, on and on and on. And it's being directed by Rian Johnson, the guy who did Looper and Brick, and I cannot wait for this movie. I know almost nothing about it, other than it's, the way you described it, but I am very excited for it. I cannot wait to hear what they're going to do with it. I heard Chris Evans talk very highly about it. He's very excited for it, so I'm excited for it too, man. All right, Angus Dustigear writes, hello, over under 15%, J.K. Simmons returns as J. Jonah Jameson. I'm going to take under 15, but I don't think it's 0. I don't think it's 0. Now, I am of the mindset that if you reboot something, then reboot it. Don't bring back 7 elements from the other one. If you're rebooting, then just sack up and reboot, right? But I've always said I'll make 2 exceptions. One, James Earl Jones doing the voice of Mufasa, and we've got that. And the other would be getting J.K. Simmons back to be J. Jonah. That to me are the exceptions. Every rule has an exception, and those are my exceptions. I would be so down for that in every way, shape, or form. So I'll take under 15%. I don't think it's going to happen, but I also don't think it's an impossibility. So I'll take under 15%, but let's keep our eyes on that. I still think it's possible. Timothy Platt writes, the Batman is taking so long is because Batman will travel to another universe where he travels back in time to save Robin from the Joker. Batman puts a more protective suit on him, making him Iron Robin. Also, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is Robin. Yeah. Woo! So much wrong with that, Timothy. So much wrong with that. And I know you're joking around. But I mean, yeah, now there are reports about Batman being delayed again, although I don't know how you delay something that didn't have an official launch date, but whatever. It's just, I said this before, I'll say it again. I'm getting to the point with this Batman project that they announced years ago, and still nothing has happened. I'm getting to the point where I'll just believe it when I see it. Like, when something actually happens, then tell me about it. Until then, I'm almost to the point that I'm just going to put Batman out of my mind. Like, look, I hated the fact that Ben Affleck left as the director, but Matt Reeves is a really good director. So it's like, ooh, Matt Reeves will do a good Batman. But that was years ago, literally years ago, that got announced. And we're still nowhere closer. We're still not the slightest bit close to getting an actual Batman movie. So I'm just to the point now. It's like, you know what? Just I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm just saying I'm at that point where I'll believe it when I see it. Okay, let's see. Raven writes, at Angus, I'll take under, but that would be amazing. Was that for the J. Jonah thing? Yes, it was. Yeah, I'm like that too. It would be amazing, but I'll also take the under, although I do think it's possible. All right, Taki75 writes, Hemsworth's best moment in Endgame is when he says, I went for the head. His voice and face are that of a man who just died inside. It was a good moment, but I'm going to go with, pardon me, I'm going to go with near the end of the conversation with his mother. I'm not talking about the first part of the conversation when he's, I'm totally from the future. I don't mean that part, but I mean when the conversation got serious. I thought that was a wonderful moment between him and Rene Russo. And it harkened back to his performance in Infinity War in that scene between him and Rocket when he's talking about the what else do I have to lose speech. They reminded me a lot of that. So to me, like that's a great one you're mentioning, Taki. I'll take the one with Rene Russo, though. Call of Duty God writes, good morning, guys. Well, it's good afternoon now, Call of Duty. My guilty pleasure is Flash Gordon. Flash! 1980, so cheesy, corny, and goofy fun, and so good. Princess Aura, Ming's daughter, can give me flying lessons anytime. Did you guys enjoy this movie? Stay filthy. It was one of those movies. I mean, look, I was a child when that came out, but it was one of those movies that was amazing and everything like that. When you're a kid, you grow up and you realize just how cheesy the movie is, but at the same time, whenever it pops on, it's kind of like Ted. Do you remember Ted with Mark Wahlberg and Paul McFarlane? Not Paul McFarlane. Why am I forgetting McFarlane's Seth MacFarlane? Why was I freezing on that? By the way, Paul McFarlane is my cousin's name. I just lost again. Seth MacFarlane. The Seth MacFarlane with the teddy bear and stuff like that. That movie alone reinvigorated a cultural-wide love of Flash. That put it back on the map for everybody. But like I said, as an adult, you realize just how cheesy it is, but I can't help but have that little bit of enthusiasm and excitement when it comes on, or when I see that it's playing somewhere, like Mark Wahlberg does in the movie Ted. It's got a special place, man, and it was there. It's one of the first sci-fi things I saw as a kid, notwithstanding Star Wars, but it was one of the first sci-fi things I saw as a kid, so it's always going to have a really special place for me. All right. Eric Flynn writes, hey, John, hope everyone is having a great day. I am. I can speak for myself at any rate. I told you guys a week ago I was going to watch Game of Thrones in 1 week, and during your show today, I watched the last one. That tip of the cap. It's funny. I've been hearing from a lot of people saying, you know, with all this hype about the last season of Game of Thrones, all right, I'll start binging it. That's like 70 episodes. And for you to blow through 70 episodes in a week, Eric, tip of the cap to you, sir. Tip of the cap to you. Zach Bartran writes, anything you would really like to see changed or improved in the whole movie-going experience? Well, I mean, they've been doing some good things, Zach. I mean, we've got recliner seats. Some places even have sofas. I mean, the sodas are great. We're seeing a lot of movie theaters getting a bigger and bigger food selection while they're there. We've got pre-reserved seats now, and not everywhere in North America, but it's getting there. So we've got pre-selected seats, which has vastly improved things. We now have these movie club services, these movie subscription services like A-List, and Cinemark has one, and Alamo Drafthouse is coming out with one. You know Regal's going to come out with one at some point. We've got better and better projection. We got better and better sound. It's getting great. The big thing to me, though, that I still think the industry, this includes movie theaters and studios as a whole, need to address is the cost of going to the movies. Now, when I go to a movie at my AMC Burbank 16 here, if I don't have an available slot on my A-List and I gotta buy a ticket, it's like $22 a ticket. So if I want to take me and Ann to a movie, there's $45 right there that I'm spending. before I even get to the concession stand. For other people, then you got to figure in babysitting and what. So I really do think they need to start looking at ways to get a handle on the cost of going to the movies. You know, making more and more money at the box office every year looks great. But if at the same time you're making more money at the box office and fewer people went to the movies, that spells long-term disaster. You can, squeak by with that for a couple of years, but long-term, that's a recipe for disaster. And they've got to figure out a way to make it less expensive for movie theaters to operate, to make it less expensive to go to the movies in the first place. That's the thing they've got to do. They've got to get a handle on the ticket prices for a lot of areas of the country to improve the movie. But otherwise, I think they're doing a really good job. They really are. Springus McDingus writes, you guys ever watch Tim and Eric? Honestly, I've never seen it myself. Rodrigo Ortiz writes, Rob, what are your thoughts on the movie Ransom? Unfortunately, Rob's not here right now. You guys know me. I really like the movie. Terrell Wise writes, is there a limit amount of cursing in a PG-13? I think there is. Like, we know with the F-bomb, I think you can drop one F-bomb in a PG-13 movie. But it's a whole mixture of things. And there's not really science to it. There's an art to it. So, but yeah, I'm sure there is a limit. I'm sure the MPA has you can say, shit if you want, but if you say it so many times, we're slapping you with the R, so I'm sure they've got some kind of formula with that. Jetfire97 writes, where, who, and why is Gamora now? When is Gamora from 2014? Yep, Gamora's back, everybody. KW Garrett 83 writes, I'm so happy that reshoots exist. Russo's explained that Robert Downey Jr.'s iconic line at the end battle of Endgame was added in reshoots from this January. You know what? I'm a little mixed on the big final line. I really am. And I could see why it probably wasn't there in the first place. And I am Iron Man. He's never referred to himself as Iron Man other than maybe in the first movie, but very rarely. So I don't know. At the one hand, it was very much fan service. At the one hand, it was very much fan service. A great callback to the end of the first movie. Now ending out his character arc with that. So there's something very look, I like it, but I'd be very curious to know. I'd be very curious to know what it replaced. Because it might have been something better. But it was still pretty iconic, I got to agree. Okay, Roman Bryant writes, I know I'm in the minority, but Ant-Man is my favorite character in the MCU. Dude, I love Ant-Man. He's not my favorite, but I love Ant-Man as played by Paul Rudd. The first Ant-Man movie was fantastic. He brought such a great dynamic to the rest of the cast in Endgame. I love this character. I love Paul Rudd. So he may not be my favorite. That's still Captain America. But I'll tell you what, I will share that bandwagon with you of the Ant-Man love. I love Ant-Man. I think he's fantastic. All right. Tyler Yeats writes, I was surprised when Peter refers to Carol as Captain Marvel in the new trailer. Yeah, I see some other people writing about that online. What's the big deal? I mean, honestly, she popped up. Within 3 minutes, she probably had a worldwide nickname. Honestly. Within 3 minutes of her participating in the battle that undid the decimation, there were probably nicknames for her within 3 minutes on the global wide media. It's really not that big of a, wait a minute, how did he know her name was Captain Marvel? Well, they probably started calling her that immediately. All it took was one newscaster calling her that, and then the rest of the world. Then it just caught on, and the rest of the world called her that. And I'm assuming that the events of Spider-Man Far From Home probably takes place a month or two after the events of Endgame. So yeah, it's not a big deal at all. It didn't catch me by surprise or throw me off guard in the least, to be honest with you, Tyler. Or, maybe that's a name that, Nick Fury gave her while she was gone. He might have given her that name while she was gone. And then just told people, who was that? That was Captain Marvel. I mean, easy. And then boom, it's all over the world. It's on the media. It's all over the world. Boom, just like that. It's around the world. So I don't think it's really anything to write home about. Zach Bartran writes, for Robert, who is not here, if you had to choose Which would you pick as the better Exorcist prequel, Dominion or Exorcist the Beginning? I'll be honest, I think I saw the Beginning. I don't think I've ever seen Dominion. But yeah, Robert's the guy who's got to answer that question, unfortunately. Jordan Jr. Allen writes, your thoughts on this supposed multiverse? I've given my thoughts many times already. I do not like the idea of multiverse. I think it's the bottom of the barrel in laziness. I think it's like, well, we're not creative enough to come up with the other creative storylines, so multiverse. So basically, you can do or say anything now. So that's my thought. But again, that's not me saying that, oh, the MCU's doomed now. I'm not saying that, because we've seen bad concepts turned into amazing things before by talented filmmakers, and Kevin Feige could very well do that. Let's wait and see. But in principle, on paper, I don't like it. I don't like time travel. I don't like multiverse garbage. But anyway, to me, it's a plot device for 5-year-olds. But that's just my opinion. It's just my opinion, and everybody else has different opinions, and that's all cool. All right, Patrick Conway writes, Russo say Hulk's arm is permanently damaged. Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything, because like even in the same statement where they say Hulk's arm is now permanently damaged, Leon said, well, yeah, but another filmmaker later might say, well, such and such a genius figured out a way to repair it. So the Russos can say it's permanent, but it's not up to them. It's up to whatever filmmaker uses the Hulk next, because they can just say, Shuri figured out a way to fix. Shuri's the smartest person in the MCU. They could just say Shuri figured out a way to fix it. Or, they could just say Bruce figured, I'm just going to cut off my arm and see if that insane healing factor of mine kicks in and grows back. I mean, there's 1,000 ways out of it. So yeah, the Russos said it, but that doesn't mean anything really. But even the Russos just then said, but wait and see, somebody else may come up with a way to say that his arm is back to regular strength. So I wouldn't pay any attention to that, Patrick. Terrell Weiss writes, how is Age of Ultron the most expensive MCU movie? I do not believe it is. Hold a second. I'm pretty sure the most expensive MCU movie is Endgame. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Age of Ultron had a production budget of $250 million. I believe Endgame had a production budget of $350 million, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check here. Avengers Endgame, production budget $356 million. Yes, so Age of Ultron is not the most expensive MCU movie. Avengers Endgame is. All right, Anthony C. writes, what type of mixer do you use for the show? Like audio mixer? I use the Rode Rodecaster Pro. It's a new device that just came out this year, but that's what I use. I use the Rode Rodecaster Pro is what I use to do my sound mixing. Let's see here. Where are we at? Stubble McShave writes, did you ever see Stan and Ollie top 5 of 2019? I still haven't watched it. And I want to. I've been excited about it ever since I saw the trailer, and I just never got around to watching it. I got to get down to watching that, Stubble. Anthony C. writes, have you ever done a podcast with an iPad? No, I don't know why you would. Frankie Gouge writes, something I missed in Spider-Man trailer. Peter calls Captain Marvel by her name. First time anywhere. Starting to think there is a 1 or 2 year time jump. Dude, it wouldn't take 1 or 2 years. It would take 3 seconds. With social media and the worldwide media and all that kind of stuff, as soon as one person said Captain Marvel, boom, it would be global, worldwide within a few hours. So I don't think it's a 1 or 2 year time. I really do think it's just a couple of months. I really do think it's just a couple of months. But you never know. We'll find out. We'll find out here soon enough. Anthony C. writes, to be honest, John, you like... Be honest, John, you like PTI because Kornheiser waves the Canadian flag at the end of every show. Nope. Though he does that, good night, Canada, he just waves the flag, which I always thought was weird. But no, I love PTI. That's a great show. Will Bond and Kornheiser, they're great. They are fabulous. I learn a lot about hosting stuff and being a pundit, even though they do sports punditry. There's a lot of lessons to learn that I learned from those guys and a lot of sportscasters. But you guys have probably picked up that most of my style I have a sportscaster style in talking about movies because that's just the way I'm wired. But that is true. He does wave the little Canadian flag at the end there. That's right. Guy Volt writes, are you planning on seeing Angry Birds 2? Not unless somebody forces me to be honest. Anthony C. writes, I was at the train station, LMAO, after hearing Rob's Road Warrior date story. You are hardcore, brother. Hashtag no kissing during the Road Warrior. Yeah, I think that was on our Best Movie, Worst Movie podcast. By the way, new episode of Best Movie, Worst Movie going up in the next, either later today or tomorrow. Going to see if I can get up tonight, but I'm a little bit busy tonight. I'm going to try to get up tonight. If not, it'll be up tomorrow. Keep your ears open for the next episode of Best Movie, Worst Movie. All right, Murray Reich writes, bitch, please, you've been to space. LOL, such a Sam Jackson thing to say. Totally is. I love the line. It's like, I don't know if I'm up to it. Bitch, please, you've been to space. I love the line. It was appropriate. It fit. Didn't feel out of place. It was great. Anthony C. writes, in your opinion, what's the MCU's most underutilized villain? That's actually been in the MCU? I don't know. I mean, look, up until recently, the MCU hasn't had a good track record with their villains. It's not a matter of underutilizing them. They just haven't had particularly intriguing villains. Malekith, the Dark Elf, could have been, but he was, quite frankly, kind of uninteresting as a villain. They've had several villains that are, quite frankly, fairly uninteresting. Now, fortunately, they don't base their movies on their villains historically. Traditionally, they base their movies on the heroes. And even when they've had, underwhelming villains, the movies still shine because the main focus has been on the hero and what their journey is. So I don't know. I guess I would have loved to seen them use Loki more. I mean, they've used Loki a lot, but he's one that could probably use. But I don't really know that there's any, because underutilized means they're so good and they should have been used more. And I really can't think of a lot in the MCU that fits that description. Thanos is great, but he was used a lot. So you can't really say Thanos. I mean, and he was the prime character of Infinity War, him and Thor. So you can't really say he's underutilized. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. Catholic Jack writes, happens first, Justice League 2 or Silver Surfer in the MCU? I'm going to guess they're both a ways off, but I'm going to guess Justice League 2. I think we're a number of years away from them bringing in any of the Fox or X-Men stuff, whereas I think we're probably 4 or 5 years away from actually having a Justice League 2 in theaters. I don't know that for sure. We're just taking a wild guess here, but my wild guess is Justice League 2 happens first. Murray Reich writes, Happy, come with me. I work with Spider-Man. Flash, you work for Spider-Man? Happy, I work with Spider-Man, not for Spider-Man. That was another great thing. I'm so happy, by the way, no pun intended. I am so happy that Happy is in this movie. I've always loved the Happy character, right from Iron Man 1. I think, we're talking about underutilized characters. I think Happy is a character that should have been used more in the MCU. I just think he's great. I love him, and I'm really happy to see him, and I agree with you, Murray. That's a great line. Murray follows that up with, where are we at? When I first time saw my reaction to Cap getting Mjolnir, the whole theater went nuts. My eardrums started hurting me. LOL, worth it. Yeah, man, I still remember being at the world premiere the first time I saw it, and Mjolnir flying to Cap's hand. Place went nuts. Then I saw it the next day at a press screening on Disney's lot with about 400 other people. And when Mjolnir flew to Cap's hand, place went nuts. Then I saw it in an AMC theater on the Thursday opening night. And when Mjolnir flew to Cap's hand, place went nuts. Then when I saw it at another AMC theater, this time in Riverside, California, at the AMC Tyler 16 theater, Mjolnir threw to Cap's hand, place went nuts. It's a magnificent, marvelous moment that's going to be with me for a long time. It's a great moment. A Spectre writes, Hey, John, is it fair to liken Chris Evans to the John Wayne of superhero movies? Who would be Clint Eastwood? Ryan Reynolds? I wouldn't know. I don't see any similarities at all between Chris Evans and John Wayne. I don't see any similarities in their careers. I don't see similarities in their styles. I don't see similarities into the types of movies they were in. So if you're asking me if I think it's fair to liken Chris Evans to the John Wayne of superhero movies, I'll say no. I'll say no. I don't think that's an apt comparison. Personally, I don't think so. Only you know why you said that. Like, maybe you've got some kind of formula in your head that you can see the similarities, but personally, no. I think they're two very, very, very different actors and careers. Murray Reich writes, when are you seeing John Wick 3 opening night? You know me, guys. I generally don't go to press screenings anymore because it's a waste of time for me, for the most part. But, Kaori, I was going to go to Pikachu, and I did, because Anne really wanted to see it. But then Anne couldn't go, but Kaori really wanted to see it, so I ended up going anyway to Kaori. Obviously, I'm going to go to Endgame's one. And I'm really looking forward to John Wick, but not enough that I feel like I have to go to a press screening of it. So I'm going to see it opening night, like everybody else, and have my popcorn, my soda, and have a good time watching them wreck some fools. Javier Rios 405 writes, with characters like Morbius or possibly Kraven, does that mean we won't see them in the MCU since they'll appear in their own movies like Venom? I think that's a fair thing to say, Javier. Don't expect to see, unless they do some weird multiverse crossover, which I do not expect. But unless they do that, do not expect to see Morbius or Kraven or Venom in the MCU. They're not going to run two versions of the same character in two different movie universes at the same time. That would be confusing to the audience. They're not going to do that. They've already said they're not going to do stuff like that. So I don't expect it. So no, it definitely means you won't see them as long as they're in the Venom universe. MZod780 writes, John, it is as you prophesied. Endgame's huge box office drop has naysayers coming out of the woodwork saying how the movie is a failure. I told you. The movie makes $145 million. Well, now it's $147. The movie makes $147 million on its second weekend. That is the second biggest second weekend of all time. Out of the history of cinematic films, only one movie in history has had a bigger second weekend, and that was The Force Awakens, and it only beat it by like $2 million. So you're talking about the second biggest second weekend in the history of cinema. And people are finding ways to talk negatively about that. Oh, I guess it failed. See, it failed. I told you guys that would happen, and sure enough, it's happening. But don't be surprised, man. Don't be surprised. Christian Benelia writes, hey, John, if Shang-Chi becomes successful, the martial arts combined with Captain Marvel's special power-up effects and Disney owning Fox, could we see a possibility for a new Dragon Ball movie? Thoughts? I'm the wrong guy to ask. I think Dragon Ball's... I'm not a fan of Dragon Ball Z. They did a Dragon Ball movie. It flopped. Nobody went to go see it opening weekend to find out that it sucked. And then once everybody found out it sucked, nobody went to go see it again. They put out Avatar. That failed. It's a tough thing to do. There's just not an audience for it. And, I think we're going to see this with Pikachu. When they first started talking about Detective Pikachu, there was a bunch of people screaming at me, John, you're underestimating the fan base for Pokemon. It's the biggest IP in the world. It's going to be 200 million easy opening weekend. And I'm like, look, I think Pokemon Detective Pikachu can have a big weekend, but it ain't going to make 200 million opening. And people just kept screaming at, you don't know anything, John. Pokemon's the biggest IP in the world, so it's going to be huge. I'm like, yeah, okay, but Winnie the Pooh is the third biggest IP in the world, and that didn't equal big box office. Well, they're different. Well, no, they're not. Not in this comparison at any rate. So I don't know. I don't know. I think Disney needs to see proof that this type of movie can attract a big audience, because so far there's been no proof of that. I'm not saying they shouldn't. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they shouldn't. But I think Disney's going to, before they invest anything, I don't think Shang-Chi is going to have anything to do. Look, Shang-Chi can come out and be a total flop. And I don't think that'll lessen the chances of a new Dragon Ball movie. At the same time, I don't think Shang-Chi can come out and be a huge hit and have it increase the chance for Dragon Ball Z. I think it's two totally different things. So I don't think one affects the other whatsoever. What I think Disney wants to see is somebody do a movie that's in this neighborhood of things and have it see a little bit of success. And if they see that, then I think there's a really strong possibility they could do it. Look, Disney's always about the franchises, man. They're always looking for the next big franchise. And you know what? They know the MCU is not going to last forever. They know that. They know that just like at Warner Brothers, eventually the Harry Potter movies end. And what do you got left? They're looking at HBO. Eventually Game of Thrones ends. They know that eventually the MCU ends. And eventually Star Wars ends. You need your next big franchise. And they're going to be looking for their next big franchise. And they're going to try several things. So it's definitely a possibility that it could be a Dragon Ball franchise for sure. But they're going to need to see some proof that this sort of thing can succeed on a big level. And again, I don't think the flopping of Shang-Chi or the blockbuster success of it will positively or negatively affect the possibilities of it moving forward. I think it's its own thing right now. And we'll see what happens. But I hope for all you guys who are big Dragon Ball fans, I hope it happens. I mean, I would love it if you guys got that, because that would be cool. Seeing happy movie fans is the best thing in the world. It would be great if they could do it. I'm just not one who cares about it personally, but that doesn't mean you guys don't, and I hope you get it because it would make you happy. Gabriel Reed writes, I swear to God, if no one reboots Airwolf, I'll do it myself. Definitely underrated show. Cheesy, but I loved it. I loved it too, Gabriel, but honestly, I've talked about Airwolf a lot, and probably the greatest theme music ever in the history of television. It's the best. Anyway, the problem is it doesn't date well. The concept of a really high-tech helicopter now isn't that much of a stretch anymore. No, we already have massively high-tech helicopters that can do just about everything. And so it loses that element. See, when Blue Thunder and Airwolf were out, these were concepts, but often, Blue Thunder based it on a lot of real-world basic technology that was developing at the time, but they were doing things that were kind of more advanced. All that stuff now is just commonplace in stuff that we have today. The military technology is so advanced, so I don't know that you could do an Airwolf today and have it be successful. I just know that would be believable. But God, I did love that original show, man. Jan Michael Vincent, Ernest Borgnine, greatest opening music of all time. I loved it, Gabriel. All right, Luke1234 writes, time travel plus multiverse equals unlimited fake deaths. Yep, my biggest problem with the MCU, and I love the MCU. I love it. But my biggest problem with it has always been it's the Marvel Cinematic Fake Death Universe. And we just had Endgame, in which they undid, 20 big MCU deaths and trillions of deaths in the overall cinematic universe. They're all about fake deaths. Oh, somebody's dead. Just kidding, they're back. Oh, Gamora's dead. Look, she's back too. Well, they did kill Loki. Oh, look, Loki's back now too. I mean, it's the fake death universe. And that's why when characters die in the MCU, I don't have a big emotional response to it because I don't believe it. When Spider-Man died in Infinity War, while there were a lot of people crying around me, I'm like, oh, this is a really good scene. It's being played very well, but I know Spider-Man's coming back, so I feel no loss. As an audience member, I feel no loss. I've made this comparison before. Unlike something like, say, Sons of Anarchy, when my favorite character in the show, Opie, dies, I felt that loss because I knew he was gone. That's it. He's gone. They ain't bringing him back. He's dead. In Sons of Anarchy, when somebody dies, they die. And so seeing Opie die hit me much stronger as an audience member because I knew I, as a fan and as an audience member, just lost that character. That character's now gone. And the emotional impact of that was so much more tangible and real and effective that, even Peter's death in Infinity War or Tony's death in Endgame or Loki's death in Infinity War. I don't care. I don't care if Thanos says, no resurrections this time. Sure, give it 5 minutes. Somehow, some way, Loki will be back. So the consequence of the Marvel Cinematic Fake Death Universe is that when you do kill characters, not for everybody, but for me at least, and I know for some other people as well, I don't get to feel that big emotional impact. It can still be a great scene. Tony's death scene is a great scene. It's a great scene. I enjoyed it very much. But it didn't choke me up. It didn't almost bring me to tears because, oh, he's coming back. Might not be this year, might not be in 2 years, might not be in 3 years. He'll be back. Because that's what the MCU does. They bring them back. They dusted huge amounts of our heroes in Endgame, just brought them back. They, they apparently killed Nick Fury. Nah, he didn't really die. He was alive the whole time. They bring him back. They make us think Loki's dead a couple of times, just brought him back. Oh no, Thor died. Oh no, wait, now Mjolnir's flying to his hand. He's alive. Yeah, they just bring him back. And so that is a frustrating thing to me as a film fan. It's a frustrating thing to me as an MCU fan. As somebody who loves the MCU so much, it does bother me that they'll sometimes deliver these big, what they're supposed to be big emotional scenes, but they have no impact on me because, well, he's not gone. It's not like when you see, one of your favorite characters in Breaking Bad die. It's not like when you see one of your favorite characters in Game of Thrones die. It's not like, although they did bring Jon Snow back, so there's that. However, most of the people they've killed, they've just kept them dead. But it's not like Sons of Anarchy, where when they kill a character, you as an audience member just lost that character. They're gone and they ain't coming back. And you feel that emotional loss. And again, the repercussion and the consequence of what the MCU has done is that don't feel it anymore. Now, a lot of people still do, as is testimony by all the sobbing I heard in the theaters, both at the end of Infinity War and Endgame, which is great. But the more they keep on pulling this, because there are also a lot of people I talk to now too that say, yeah, I mean, I don't get any emotional impact because I just know they're coming back. That's going to just keep spreading. The more and more they pull this stuff. And now that they have multiverse and now that they have time travel, it's just going to happen all the more. It's like, don't go walking across the traffic like that. You could die. Who cares? We've got time travel and multiverse now. I'll be fine. You know, it's a little too bad. Anyway, enough of that. Sorry about that. I went off on that for longer than I intended to. Luke1234 writes, I guess a multiverse is the answer to X-Men in the MCU. I don't know, because here's the thing. Everybody keeps forgetting. Kevin Feige did not start planning anything or even thinking about X-Men and Fantastic Four until the Fox deal closed. Legally, he wasn't allowed to, and he wasn't going to risk a $71 billion deal by breaking the rules. This multiverse stuff has been planned for years. They knew years ago what was going to happen at the end of Endgame going into Spider-Man Far From Home. They planned this years ago. So they had this all planned out without a single thought about X-Men or Fantastic Four or anything like that coming into the MCU. But what that doesn't necessarily mean is it doesn't necessarily mean that Kevin Feige can't piggyback on it now and go, oh, well, maybe the fact that we're doing this multiverse, this may open an opportunity for us to bring in X-Men later down the line if we so choose. I still think the multiverse thing isn't going to be around for long. I think they're going to shut this down. Don't necessarily think they're going to shut it down in Spider-Man Far From Home. Maybe they will. I don't necessarily think they're going to shut it down within the next 18 months, but I think they've probably, just as they planned this multiverse thing years ago, I think they've already got their plan for how they're going to shut it out, how they're going to close it down. But I mean, I don't know that for sure. So maybe the X-Men can take advantage of that situation. They decide to use it there, but it was never part of the plan. That's all I know. All I know is it wasn't part of the plan, but we'll see how they use it moving forward. Dirk Walker writes, I find so much complaining about fake deaths odd from lifelong comic book fans. When has a character ever stayed dead in the comic? But that's the thing. The movies are supposed to be different. These are the movies, not the comics. And remember, if you want to see a great video on why the fake death stuff is so corrosive and damaging to these universes, watch, oh crap, why am I freezing on his name? Hold on a second, give me 1 second here. I don't know why I'm freezing on his name. I've done things with him before. Max Landis. Go online, go onto YouTube, and watch Max Landis's video on the death and return of Superman. Max Landis put this brilliant video together that's funny and hilarious, but beneath the hilarity is brilliant observation. Max Landis did this brilliant video on the death and return of Superman in the comics. Remember when they killed off Superman in the comics? Then he brought him back. And he basically asserts, I can't even paraphrase him right, but I'm going to try, but you got to watch the video. Him basically saying, by bringing back Superman, you undermine such a primal narrative force in storytelling that's now gone. Because death doesn't mean anything now in the comics. Now death doesn't mean anything. And sure enough, after they brought Superman back, he goes on this video about, now every character has died and come back. Now death in the comic books doesn't mean anything. And that's been to the comic books' detriment, I believe. And a lot of people believe. Now you have the movie industry, and movies aren't the comic books, they're the movies. And now you have a chance to do things better and do things right. And listen, the odd fake death can be effective. Once out of every 4 or 5 movies, but they've just done it on such a mass scale that it undermines the deep emotional moments. Now, does that mean Endgame didn't work? Not at all. Of course it worked. I still love the scene. I thought those scenes were great. I just didn't have the emotional impact. But anyway, that's just that, Dirk. Okay. Tanner Richards writes, do you think Marvel and Sony will re-up their contract with Spider-Man? Maybe to entice Sony into letting Marvel keep using him, they can let Sony do animated movies for other MCU heroes. Listen, Tanner, honestly, I said this a couple months ago. I think the deal's already done. I don't think they've announced it yet, but I think it's done. I believe the moment Venom made money and Venom became a hit, I believe at that moment Sony knew we can keep Spider-Man in the MCU. Let's re-up this deal. Because now they knew, we can make successful comic book movies that the audience enjoys and makes us lots of money without Spider-Man. Great. We'll have Spider-Man over in the MCU and we'll make money off him there. And we'll have our own movie universe here. We'll make money off it here. Win-win. And I believe it was shortly after that they re-upped the deal. So I have no insider information on this. I'm just saying I personally believe that deal has already been extended and it was done a long time ago. They just haven't announced it yet. I think that's the case that we're in right now. 2014, Gamora's new boyfriend. I love that username. That's great. 22 films and not a single rotten rating. Even the weaker entries, Iron Man 2 at 73%, are still liked by the majority. Great achievement. And no, it's nuts. It is hard to make a good movie. It's hard. People think, just make a good movie. It's easy. No. It's nearly impossible. It's really, really freaking difficult to make a good movie that people enjoy. Somehow, some way, the MCU has managed to do something that just about every movie they've put out has at least at minimum pleased the crowds. That's insane. That's insane. And almost more impressive than the box office numbers that they've piled up. And the box office numbers they've piled up have been impressive. But that's an almost bigger feat. Like 22 in. And not a truly terrible movie. It's all subjective. Some people may feel some of them are. But from my point of view, there's not a truly terrible one in the bunch. There are some that aren't quite as good as others. Iron Man 2, Thor the Dark World, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, whatever. But for the most part, they have all, at the very minimum, pleased the audience. And that's crazy, man. David Goldstein writes, will you be making a video ranking the Infinity Saga? Yes. Yes, I will be. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to do a live stream doing my countdown ranking the 22 MCU films. And of course, my list is the gospel truth. It is the definitive list. I hereby shall speaketh, so let it be written, so let it be done. I will give you the world, the definitive list, the true list of 1 to 22 ranking the MCU films. Now, of course, I'm being facetious. All film is subjective and all lists are subjective. But I am going to give you mine. I'm going to reveal my list tomorrow afternoon. I'm not quite sure what time yet. I'll let you know when I do the John Campea Show, but I'll do it live so we can have some conversation about it as well. But, pardon me. But yes, that will be coming. Okay. The Geixer73 writes, love the show. Thank you so much, Geixer. It's always nice when somebody just wants to write in and say something pleasant. Thank you, man. Chris Lissenfeld writes, could it be possible, much like Star Wars, to have video games set in the MCU? I hope so. I really do. I would love it. I don't really know why there haven't been. Now, maybe some people might be screaming at their computer monitors right now saying, John, there are one or two. I'm just not familiar with them. But yes, I think it is possible. I just don't know why they haven't done it yet. Aiden Cossack writes, now that we can talk about Endgame spoilers, why would Drax wear a vest to Tony's funeral? He knows his nipples are sensitive. I honestly don't remember. I don't remember what Drax was wearing or not wearing, however the case may be. I honestly can't remember. Yes, he has very sensitive nipples. Good observation. See, now you just gave me an excuse to go watch again because I got to figure out what was he wearing at that funeral. Toonie2 writes, if Endgame fails to beat Avatar's worldwide box office, over under 5%, another movie this year will do it. Ooh. Well, let's be clear here. I do believe it will catch Titanic's or Avatar's box office. I do believe it will. It didn't before. I was as skeptical as anybody that it would. But I think now that we see the actual numbers, it's hard to imagine that it won't. It's not a guarantee, though, but it's hard to imagine that it won't. Over under 5%, another movie this year will do it. I got to take under. I don't think Episode 9 is going to be a $2 billion film. I think Star Wars Episode 9 will be a smash hit. It'll be a $1 billion film, but I don't think it'll be a $2 billion film like The Force Awakens was. I don't think Lion King will make $200 2.7 billion. I don't think it'll do that. Aladdin certainly isn't. Godzilla isn't. Yeah, no, I got to take the under. 5's a low number, but I'm going to have to take the under on that. If Endgame doesn't, I just can't see any film this year doing it. Not this year. Lee Mallinson writes, Russo's post-Endgame comments are contradictory and indecisive. They kind of are. I don't think they have a grasp of their own movie. I think they do. They just, whatever. Only one worth listening to is Feige. Well, I mean, that's true. Feige's the only one worth listening to because all the Russos can do and all, the directors of, whether it's a Gunn with Guardians of the Galaxy or Taika Waititi with Thor, the directors of Ant-Man or the directors of Doctor Strange or the directors of Black Panther or the directors of whatever else, all they can do is speak for their movies. What happens in and around those movies and how they connect to what happens previously or what happens afterwards, they actually have no say in. That includes the Russos. Because a great example of that is something we were talking about a little bit earlier. The Russos can say Hulk's arm is permanently damaged. That's great. Tomorrow, Kevin Feige can say, yeah, you can have Hulk's arm back. Go ahead. Like if Ryan Coogler wants to use Hulk in the next Black Panther, but wants to have Hulk at full strength. Okay, nanotech, blah, 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 Shuri, blah, 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 Hulk's fixed arm. There you go. Or whatever reason. They can do that. Russos have no say in that. But that's true of Joss Whedon. That's true of Jon Favreau. That's true of Taika Waititi. That's true of any of the other directors. It is Kevin Feige's world, and we all just live in it, and he's the one who gets final say in all that. Bradley Alonzo writes, thought Thor's Wakanda entrance was epic. Captain America lifting the hammer was so epic. My theater went nuts. Again, it's funny because we've been talking about that today too. I've been in 4 audiences where that happens. They've all gone crazy and gone nuts. It is one of the great epic scenes I can ever remember in a movie. It was absolutely fabulous. I just loved it. It was crazy. Eddie Burton writes, where are we at? Do you think Mickey Rourke was underutilized in Iron Man 2? He's gone on record saying he thinks so, and honestly, so do I. Honestly, I don't. I really don't. I don't think he was. I don't think it was a good character. And, I mean, it was a good idea for a character, but I don't think... Mickey Rourke wanted Iron Man 2 to be about his character. He wanted Iron Man 2 to be about Mickey Rourke. And look, I'm not going to sit here and go on a prolonged thing, bad-mouthing anybody. All I'm going to say about this, Mickey Rourke is about Mickey Rourke. I have talked to a number of filmmakers on a number of films who have worked with Mickey Rourke, who've all said it was one of the more challenging experiences of their career trying to work with Mickey Rourke. I've been at press junkets where Mickey Rourke had commitments to do things and really screwed a number of people over. I don't want to go into it too much, except to say this. Of course, Mickey Rourke thinks they underutilized him in Iron Man 2, because according to Mickey Rourke, the movie probably should have been about Mickey Rourke. I mean, ever since The Wrestler came out and kind of revitalized and gave him a new lease on life, apparently he just became a little bit of a nightmare to work with. That one movie about the Olympian gods, I'm trying to remember the Immortals. I think it was Immortals. The one with Superman, Henry Cavill, and Luke Evans was in that one as well. I mean, you listen to the producers tell some story. The producers told some stories at Comic-Con that year about the difficulties and the challenges of working with a Mickey Rourke. But anyway, I don't want to go off on anything negative, but anyway, no, I do not feel the character was underutilized. I really don't. Ricky Riding writes, love all of you. Podcast rocks. TMNT 2. Yes. Oh, that must be because of Cody's pick on the one episode of the Best Movie, Worst Movie podcast. Yep. He loves himself that too. And by the way, just in case any of you guys don't know what we're talking about our podcast, for those of you maybe a little bit behind here, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and Olympic gold medalist Cody Miller, we have a podcast called Best Movie, Worst Movie. I think we have 4 or 5 episodes up right now. Go on iTunes or any of your favorite podcasting apps, and you'll be able to find Best Movie, Worst Movie. Subscribe to it. The newest episode is coming up in the next day or two. So thank you again for bringing that up, Ricky. Imad Abdelatif writes, how does Peter know that Carol Danvers goes by Captain Marvel? Again, we've covered this a couple times. All it would have taken is somebody mentioning it once. In an hour on Twitter, it's worldwide. Everybody knows who this new hero is that helped undo the decimation and blah. And instantly Captain Marvel name goes around. Not a big deal. Let's see. Henry Stevens writes, have a hunch new Spider-Man deal has been extended. It's a done deal. They will announce it the week before Far From Home. Oh yeah, I've been saying that for a while, Henry. I believe it's a done deal. I believe this thing was done shortly after Venom became a big blockbuster hit. And I don't think you're wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if they use the impending release of Far From Home as a platform to announce the extension of the deal, to give some more buzz to the movie coming out, to increase its box office and blah, blah, blah. I think you're onto something there, Henry. I really do. Good thinking. All right. Haskell420 writes, Legion Season 3 trailer dropped. Oh, I did not see that. Freaky AF plus Cerebro. Haven't seen the trailer yet myself. I'll be honest with you. I ditched on Legion Season 2. Legion's been a funny show for me. I didn't like the first episode, so I gave up on it. Then everybody kept saying, John, keep watching. It gets way better. So a few months later, I got back on board, watched episode 2 of season 1, and then binged the entire rest of it. I loved the rest of season 1. Loved it. So I was really excited about season 2. Did not like season 2. I didn't like season 2 at all, to be honest with you. And I kind of tapped out on it, and I didn't even finish the season. I am curious, though, about season 3, so I'm definitely going to go and check out this trailer as soon as I'm done recording the show, Haskell. All right, Josh99 writes, I respect your opinion on Leto's Joker, but as for myself, I just hated his interpretation. Doing Sith different. Oh, you probably mean something? Doing something different doesn't mean doing something good. Oh, I agree. I agree. Just because you do something different doesn't mean you're doing something good, but I thought he did something different, and I thought he made it good. And I thought he made it interesting. And I thought it was a different approach and a different look that I was just glued to the screen when him and Harley particularly were on screen together. I loved it. Now, that doesn't mean you need to like it. There's a lot of people who don't like it. Look, I am fully admitted. I'm in the minority on this. I am in the minority. And I'm perfectly comfortable being in the minority. I don't care. But I really enjoyed him as Joker. As much as Heath? No. As much as Jack? No. But I enjoyed his Joker. I really did. But yeah, I agree. Just because something's different doesn't mean it's good, but I thought it was different and good. So that was just my point of view, though. But you, Josh, are not alone in your opinion, man. Believe me. Haskell420 writes, It Too Twitter tweeted out a picture of 2 red balloons. Okay, that's probably a harbinger that we've got a trailer coming here pretty soon, so let's keep our eyes open for that. Joseph Mitchell writes, one of 2. What's your best and worst movie-going experience? Best was The Dark Knight. First time IMAX experience, and first time I saw audience applaud a movie. Worst was Blair Witch. Only time I've seen an audience boo movie. Really? People love The Blair Witch. Not the sequel, but audiences love the Blair Witch for the most part, but not everybody did. But Blair Witch was great. I've said this many times. My best movie-going experience ever was my first screening of the first Avengers movie. I've never seen an audience come out of a theater like trembling, like shaking, like, what did we just see? It was the most crazy thing. I loved it. It was a bunch of crotchety, jagged film critics who are just hooting and hollering and just having a blast and coming out, and everybody's just buzzing in the street coming out of it. It was nuts. Worst one, I think it's called The Number 23, the one with Jim Carrey. That I just had this gaggle of teenage girls behind us that would just blah, 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 the whole freaking movie, to the point that my buddy I was with almost threatened violence against them. Like, just finally the third time turned around, just shut the fuck. It was just made it a miserable, miserable experience. Not to mention the movie was terrible too. The movie was just awful. So that's my best and worst. All right. Marvel Man writes, what are your thoughts on on MCU's MJ? I am a fan. The sample size is too small to really have a grasp on it, to me. Sample size is too small. I think there's promise, though. I think there's promise in the character. But again, I haven't seen enough to like her too much, and I haven't seen anything that makes me dislike her either. I think this movie is going to give us a much better sample size and an overall picture of the character. So right now, I'm in kind of a wait-and-see mode for it, but I think there's potential there. Phil Simon writes, lazy writing, shooting a dragon out of the sky. No, it's not. That's brilliant. Are you kidding me? That came out of nowhere. No, that was not lazy writing. Shooting, well, how else are you supposed to shoot a dragon out of the sky? No, that was not lazy writing. You may not have liked it, but it's not lazy writing. There are things I don't like fake deaths, right? But I'm not going to call that lazy writing in and of itself. Fake deaths are not in and of themselves lazy writing. You can do something very elaborate, very clever. That shocked me watching that. That came out of nowhere for me, and clearly it was a part of a very carefully calculated, laid out plan that they had to ambush, Daenerys' forces coming on sea, took her dragons out of there. They had been planning that, by the way, since like a season or 2 seasons ago. Remember, they've been planning with their giant crossbow machines. Remember down in the dungeon area when they drove one through the skull of a dragon? They've been planning this and laying it out. This is something that's been in the works for years. Lazy writing? You don't have to like it. I'm not saying you have to think it was good. Not at all. I thought it was good. You may not. That's fine. But lazy writing? No, man, this was groundwork they had laid for years. I reject the notion that that's lazy writing. Not at all. Not at all. The Bearded One writes, "Go Bucks, boo Golden State Warriors." Well, I mean, Bucks are in the East. Why are you booing a team in the West? And the Bucks are amazing. And I hope we get to see the Bucks versus the Raptors, because I think that would be a fabulous series. Second Street Marvel writes, "Gotta love encoder issues, the beauty of life." Yeah, again, it wasn't an encoder issue. Actually, it might have been the encoder, but I think it was more of a system freeze on the application itself. Talking about this morning when we were doing the last show and it froze, because I think when I triggered to come out of the movie news feed, that's what triggered the freeze. Now, fortunately, I've done it about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times since, and it's not repeated the freeze. So hopefully we're clear of that now. But yeah, I do got to apologize to everybody who was watching the show today. And we get to the end of movie news feed, and we're supposed to now see the start of live questions, and the show just went black. So my apologies for that. But speaking of the screen going black, that's it. We are now all caught up on all the questions that got sent in this morning. Thank you guys for sending in all those questions. And again, my apologies for the fact that we didn't get around to them during the live show today. Hopefully that will never happen again. It is kind of tough. It is challenging doing one of these shows where I am both the camera operator, the audio operator, the graphics switcher, the live video trigger guy, the streaming monitor, and I'm the lead on camera guy. It is a little tough doing that, and sometimes bad things happen, and I apologize about that. But hopefully, the situation we had this morning will not happen again, particularly not happen again tomorrow, which, by the way, don't forget, tomorrow the John Campea Show returns. Make sure you come back and join us in. And again, don't forget, tomorrow afternoon, it'll either be in the evening where you're at, maybe the late afternoon where you're at. I'll give you a specific time tomorrow. I'm going to do a live stream running down my list, the definitive, one and only true 1 to 22 ranking out the MCU films. Make sure you guys come and join me then. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name is John Campea, and until our next video, bye-bye.